For a chaotic, confusing couple of days last week, it looked like the Trump administration was about to halt federal spending on all sorts of programs, including possibly housing vouchers, low-income heating assistance, Medicaid, Head Start. But after widespread outrage, lawsuits, and 2 court orders, the Office of Management and Budget rescinded its memo ordering that spending freeze.
Congress authorized that money to be spent, and it is not up to the president to decide, I don't want to spend it.
Sally Katzen at New York University School of Law says the Constitution gives Congress what's called the power of the purse, not the president.
And that means that when Congress has appropriated funds, they should be spent on what Congress had in mind.
In addition to the Constitution, David Super at Georgetown Law School says there's also the Impoundment Control Act of 1974.
The Impoundment Control Act was something that Congress passed during the Nixon administration to deal with his desire to impound or refuse to spend money that Congress had directed him to spend.
Much like Trump, President Richard Nixon didn't want to spend money on certain social and environmental programs that Congress had approved, so he just refused to spend it.
He was sued over that. He lost all the cases that were decided on the merits, including 9-0 in the Supreme Court. But Congress decided to pass a law giving him a legitimate path to propose impounding or not spending money.
That law, the Impoundment Control Act, says if the president doesn't want to spend money on, say, food stamps or upgrading infrastructure or foreign aid for whatever reason, he must go back to Congress and ask them to reconsider. But so far, Trump hasn't done that. And even though OMB rescinded its now infamous memo last week, Samuel Bagenstos at the University of Michigan Law School says the administration is currently withholding certain funding, including for green energy projects and foreign aid.
All of this was based on the same theory that President Trump wants to decide if this spending is consistent with his policy preferences, and that's not something that is a proper reason under our Constitution and laws to pause or withhold spending that Congress has adopted.
At a press conference House and Senate Democrats held Monday afternoon, Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota called the president's withholding of funds a constitutional crisis.
We have the power of the purse. We get to decide where money is allocated, and it's the executive's power to make sure that that money gets to where it needs to get.
And right now, that's not what's happening. I'm Samantha Fields for Marketplace.
S&P futures are down 0.1% now. The trade war's on with China, which announced its move, given Trump hiking tariffs 10%. China is going with 15% on liquefied natural gas and coal and 10% on farm equipment, some cars, and oil.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Clear Channel Outdoor, an out-of-home billboard company harnessing innovation and technology to connect advertisers with consumers. Clear Channel's data-driven solutions reach consumers on the go. Billboardsforbusiness.com. And by Viking, exploring the world in comfort. With a fleet of small ships, Viking offers travel experiences for the thinking person. Discover more at Viking.com. And by Glassdoor. Adam Grant has joined the Glassdoor community with expert advice on finding a job and making the most of work life, all on the Glassdoor app.
A UCLA analysis finds climate change made the Los Angeles wildfires hotter and burn longer. Now there's a calculation of what climate change could do to the value of our biggest asset, the house. First Street Foundation, a nonprofit that looks at climate and financial risk, has a new calculation saying changing climate could cut the value of real estate by $1.5 trillion over 30 years. That's $1,500 billion gone. As Marketplace's Henry Epp reports, the report finds rising insurance costs and home buyers avoiding increasingly risky properties are altering the housing market.
On the whole, property values in the U.S. are likely to keep rising in the coming decades, but climate change will limit that growth, says Jeremy Porter at the First Street Foundation.
It's really lost appreciation or lost value over the next 30 years.
That loss won't be felt evenly, he says. Housing markets in areas with weaker economies like the Rust Belt could take a bigger hit. Meanwhile, markets like Los Angeles, Miami, and Houston, which face strong climate hazards, could actually keep growing.
They also have a lot of amenities, and right now those amenities are outweighing the disamenities of climate risk, and people are still moving to those areas.
That could keep pushing up home insurance rates. One way to mitigate that is to build and retrofit homes to make them more resilient to hurricanes and wildfires, says Michael Newman with the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety.
Yes, it may cost a few $1,000s more, and I'm not underselling what that means for many families, but that can lead to longer-term savings over time for them.
States and cities can also encourage development in places people are likely to migrate to, says A.R. Siders at the University of Delaware.
If we do this proactively, we can actually give people a lot more options.
But whether communities across the country are up to that task, Siders says, is an open question. I'm Henry Epp for Marketplace.
And in Los Angeles, I'm David Brancaccio. You're listening to the Marketplace Morning Report. From 8 p.m., American Public Media.